right, let's go. Yeah, no, for me it was mostly that. It was the relationships. But you're elected. You're in city council.
Correct. I'm a city councillor in Cote-Saint-Luc, and it's been so I ran 2 elections there, but it's been a lot of fun. I actually enjoy the door-to-door. I enjoy meeting the people. Now the relationships, like you say, are you build interesting relationships over the course of an election. That's for sure. Everybody has their opinion, and but you learn from everybody, and that's what I love.
And it's honestly the most truthful feedback that you can get.
People don't hold back, and I love that. That's what I've always told my team and the various groups that I collect around, that gravitate to the campaign.
Yeah.
Is tell me exactly what it is that you think. The good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. And it's always good to get feedback. Because you want to get out there, and connecting with the residents is the most important.
For sure.
So that's how by listening to people, that's how you make those better connections.
So you were elected in 2017 for the first time?
That's correct. In City Cote-Saint-Luc, so I'm a city councillor there. I worked for the city for 5 years as the director of public works and engineering and urban planning. And I left for a few years. I worked in Haiti for 3 with the United Nations.
Okay.
I came back and started working with the First Nations of Northern Quebec. And then I built up my own company over the last 3 years. It's essentially a consulting company where I consult the various First Nations in Northern Quebec. And it is a capacity building, but also infrastructure development and funding, finding funding for their infrastructure projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, politics is a passion, because I realize I can have a real effect on getting things done.
So how does that transition happen? What made you decide to go from the engineer that you were and working on all these interesting projects to saying, I'm going to run for office?
At the municipal level, I felt there were some important changes that needed to happen. There were issues that the residents felt needed to happen as well. On transparency, that was a big element. But they wanted more involvement from the community, and so that's what I brought to the table.
Because the municipal, it's like the proximity government, right? You deal with the urgent matters, right?
It's the closest.
The potholes, the garbage, the snow pickup.
So it's the closest government official that the residents have, that they can have direct access to. So I help with people with their immediate needs, like you said, the issues related to their street or their garbage or parking issues. So you deal with the sort of they're important issues, but they're punctual. And then we also deal with the larger issues, and that's where extending the library hours. The municipal library is used by many seniors and students, mm-hmm. And it was closed they had changed the hours, they had reduced the number of hours. So one of the first things that we did is, when I was elected, is we extended the hours, and now people have access to the library on the weekends that they didn't have to the same extent. So those are changes that are appreciated by the whole population.
So the decision then to run federally, how did that come about? I mean, did you get like a support from the ground telling you, listen, you're good, we've seen you work, you're active, and we've seen how you care for the community, you should make a jump, there's an opening. Like, how does that happen?
I had I didn't run municipally with the intent of running federally.
Yeah.
I ran municipally because I wanted to represent a riding, an area within the community. With the intent, and this is how I run things, is I represent all of the citizens. I don't just look at one area, I look at the city and how it can help all of the residents with everything that we do. So that approach was sort of transcended, and people saw that on some of my votes where I was alone voting in a different way from the rest of the council. People saw that, and it resonated with them, and they asked questions, and they were asking me why I voted different ways. And so that sort of caught the attention of a few people. And then slowly started, why don't you look federal? Why don't you look at running federally? And my first question was, I'm a councillor, I was elected for 4 years. How's it going to feel to, leave there and run federally? But the answer came very easily when I spoke to the residents. And they told me, you're still going to be representing us.
For sure, just at another level.
Just a different level. So I'm representing the same residents at a different level with the same attention that I'm going to give them. So that made the decision to move an easy one. The reason why? Just of late, what's coming out with Trudeau and him not being who he says he is, I think that's the ultimate reason why I felt I had to run. We have to change. I felt that we had to change this government. We had to bring forward a government that had, a good level of ethics. People are disillusioned with their politicians because they feel the politicians are in it for themselves. And ultimately, we're here to serve the residents, and that's what I'm looking to do. And so having ethics, you have to be top of your game all of the time. It's not, you don't pick and choose when you have ethics and when you don't. And doing the right thing is always right, whether you're standing alone or you're part of a party. And so when I saw the politics, when I saw the increase in taxes, residents complaining that taxes are too high, residents complaining, and I say residents, I'm talking across the communities. People upset about our place in the world stage. They're getting upset. We've ruined our relationships with India. We ruined it with China, the States. We haven't stood up for Israel as we should have. Mr. Dress Up has always been Mr. Dress Up, right? Whether it was India or clearly, when he was a teacher. And so that's what I look at all of these things together, and that's where I said I have to make this change. I can make this change. So I felt I had an obligation to move forward and present myself.
Tell me about working on the ground. Just before we went online there. We were talking about campaigning. What are the messages that you're getting from the ground? What are people telling you?
Every area is slightly different. Cote-Saint-Luc has one set of concerns, Hampstead a different, Snowdon another one, and TMR yet again. The common themes, though, environment is a very important one. I have 5 kids, and when I look at the environment, it's a concern for me, and I certainly transmit that in my actions, and certainly in policy. So I looked at both platforms and I said, Liberals are proposing a tax. That's not going to change anything, and that's absolutely clear. Or we can actually do things. And what we're looking to do is have the large polluters invest in green technologies and have them change how they do things. And we'll take those technologies and we'll export them, and we'll change globally how people do things by using these technologies that are produced in Canada. So environment is one big one that's across the board. Immigration is another big one. People are and whether it's recent immigrants to Canada that are in the Snowdon area, or immigrants from a long time ago. My parents immigrated to Canada, so I certainly know what that feels like. And so the common theme there is they're deeply concerned about the Liberals' lack of policy. Tweets that make policy are not good policy. So when Trudeau tweets out his midnight thoughts, and that becomes policy, it bothers people. And immigration needs to be done right for the immigrants and for the population that's here. There's economic considerations, there's housing considerations, there's jobs. If we can't supply jobs to the immigrant population that's coming in, they're going to have a hard time finding housing. And I see it as a city councillor. We had to make adjustments and accommodations to local schools for them to build temporary schooling for the new immigrants. And all of this is always reactionary. And so that's where it's wrong for the immigrant population because they can't be integrated. And it's wrong for the Canadians that are waiting in line. I'd say Canadians, but immigrants that are waiting in the proper process, they're paying the lawyers and waiting the time, and they're just being tossed aside. It's not right on so many levels.
There's also a provincial jurisdiction on immigration, and it's funny that you mentioned it because a lot of the guests that I've had, we haven't been running the show for that long, but a lot of the people that have been on on the show have mentioned the immigration. And I just want to bring you to something that happened recently because Quebec Premier Legault, he just recently gave a list of expectations that he wishes all the leaders that are running for the big chair are going to respect. And in those expectations, of course, there was a wider control and jurisdiction over immigration issues. He wants whoever's elected to not challenge Bill 21, for example, which has to do with the religious symbols in the public workspace. He wants to implement the Bill 101 on companies that have federal charter, and so there was four essential elements that he mentioned. So let's say the Conservatives win. Are you going to concede anything? Are you going to accept these things, and specifically the immigration? I mean, I know that in your area you have quite a large population that is, culturally diverse and ethically, and even in terms of religion as well.
Yeah.
What happens in that respect? I mean, I'm not, unless I've missed it. I don't know if Scheer commented on that.
I don't know if he commented specifically on the request that came from the Legault's government. There's a discussion that needs to happen. Relationships need to be built. It's clear we need stronger relationships with our provincial partners. We need to break down barriers, economic barriers between the provinces, and those are things that Scheer is promising, and the Conservatives are promising, is to give more powers and have even a minister for interprovincial trade. On specifically the immigration and allowing Quebec to have more of a say on immigration numbers. Listen, I think it's important that immigration be done properly. Canada needs to be, and has always been, and we need to continue to be, the safe haven for refugees from countries that are in danger, people that are in danger in other countries, persecution, whether it's religious or any kind of persecution. So we need to continue to be that safe haven. Can some of those the numbers for immigration be allocated per province? These are things that need to be discussed, and it's not. I don't think it would be prudent on any prime minister to just tick off the four boxes without having an in-depth discussion, in-depth conversation. And then I think that's what's important is building those relationships and having the discussion.
Because there's also the issue on the environment, because you did mention about your platform specifically on the environment, and there seems to be an issue. There's a conflict between West Canada and Quebec with regards to the pipeline. We know that the Conservative government is for extending the pipeline. I understand and I agree with the fact that we need to get these resources to market. Again, Quebec seems to want to block the project.
So what Quebec is against, or Quebecers as a sort of a general population, and we're getting that by the government that's elected provincially, is that they're against bringing tar sands through Quebec, and that's an important consideration. But Quebec has tremendous resources available to them. Our hydroelectricity, which is one of the cleanest technologies around, can be exported, and why not export that west?
Yeah.
So an energy pipeline is what we're looking at. And Quebecers as a whole are not opposed to a pipeline that would transfer energies of different kinds. There's a sensitivity towards the tar sands, and that needs to be also discussed. But I believe that we would have a very strong relationship with all provinces, and certainly being a Quebecer, I would want to cultivate those stronger relationships.
Let's talk about the platform. Obviously, I mean, we're almost maybe halfway into the election. Not everything has been presented yet. It seems as though, and this is all parties combined, right? I mean, there was a poll conducted a couple of days ago. It was a Léger poll, and it took the platforms, whatever the parties have already presented, and they, especially in Quebec, they want to see what was the most popular one, what drew the most support, and nothing really scored high.
Right.
Like the top ones, I think, was the Conservatives' proposition to remove the federal tax on the hydro bill, which got like around 75 or 76%, something like that. The NDP's proposition to create a charter of consumers' rights with respect to the telecommunications,
right.
And the Liberals' proposition to legislate stricter measures on gun control and gun violence, which I think he announced today. And those are the three top, I mean, it's not really inspiring, right? And I'm just wondering if there's anything more that's going to come out, or are the electors going to be continuously drawn to these personal attacks that keep coming back and forth?
Yeah,
a couple of days ago there was the whole brown face issue. It seems as though everyone's attention is drawn more to the to the scandal than to the content of what the parties are proposing.
And you're absolutely, we need to stick more to the content and what the Conservatives are going to do for the population. I want to circle back to the issue of the brown face, and then his maybe not denial but soft apology for using quote unquote makeup. Skin color is not a makeup. There's an important element there. He was 29 years old. He was a teacher. He should have known better. We'll say that. But putting that aside, what's important to realize, and what Canadians are starting to realize at a much higher level, is he's not who he says he is. And I think that's an important element. And I think when you're choosing a leader, you need a leader that you can believe in, and that is who he says he is.
Look, there's definitely a lack of judgment. I mean, and honestly, I mean, we brought up, we're going to discuss it, but I feel almost bad talking about, because I don't think that we should be talking about these issues during a campaign.
So I agree with you, and so I just wanted to say.
I mean, I think everyone understands that he's not racist. There was a complete lack of judgment. He did something that he should have normally not done. He apologized. Right. Let's just move on.
We can agree that we should move on the subject, and it's offended a lot of people.
It has, yes.
But fine. Let's say we move on. The issue is that he's not forthcoming. He's not honest. He knew about this. He didn't disclose it. He doesn't know how many times, and this is being reported internationally now. We're on every newspaper and every. It was the largest trending story.
Well, look, from a strategy perspective, I would try to avoid the topic too. Why engage and just change the topic? Let's move on. I understand what he's doing.
But see, that's the ultimate liberal strategy: is deflect and distract. And stop doing that all the time, right? Why are we deflecting and distracting from every issue? Every issue that we bring up, it's a deflect and distract. When they talk about abortion, and it's only the Liberals that are talking about abortion, it's a deflect and distract from his lack of ethics and a lack of being the ethical stalwart that he said he is, right? And he's going to be sunny ways, but he hasn't delivered anything. And so I think that's the issue that we're ultimately talking about, is he's not who he says he is. The party is not who it pretends to be. And ultimately people have to vote for a party that they believe in, that's going to do what they say and say what they're going to do, and really have net effects at the end of the day. So to go back to the point of you mentioned, what's important to the people. So people are talking about taxes and what's left in their pocket. And you said the top issue was, remind me?
There, I mean, I don't even know how these are top issues, but your proposition, the one that scored the highest, was removing the federal tax on the hydro bill.
Okay, so the federal tax on home heating, the position of the Conservative Party, and it makes complete sense, and I'm very much in line with it, is home heating is a necessity. We don't tax necessities, and this is one thing where we should remove the federal tax from it. It'll save people between $600 and $1,000 potentially on the type of heating and of their home. So that's an important element for families that are having a hard time getting ahead and having a hard time to making ends meet. If you can remove that additional burden, if we can bring back things that the Liberals cut, like the tax credit for public transit, we bring back the tax credits for students for their books and studies. Those are tax credits that helped families at the end of the day. I love, you're driving around, but
well, there's no.
This is Montreal, so
just orange signs everywhere. Look, let's talk pragmatically here.
Yes.
Okay, let's say the Conservatives win. You're
when we win.
Yeah. Okay. When we win. Yeah. Let's be positive. So when the Conservatives win, you're inheriting a budget that, admittedly, has been completely ignored. I mean, and this is not even being objective. I think it's being factual.
It's factual. And
we went from balancing the books to 2019
with
to having
surpluses.
To having minus 70 billion in deficit. So the new government comes in. You have to assume that difference now, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you take on that big challenge to deliver the promises that you're making, but at the same time, scale back the deficit so that you can bring things back in order and balance the books?
So it's critical for our country to have balanced books. Go back to being
especially
strong.
starting to remind you that all the analysts are predicting in the next year a recession in the U.S. and obviously that's going to have an impact.
It's a global economy. We can't think we stand alone. We're in a good economy right now. There's no question we're going to have challenges when we're in government to balance the books without cutting services. So that's going to be a huge challenge. And Scheer has said it, and he's been very clear. Initially he said it's going to take less time, but he's looked at it and he's being realistic. He says it's going to take 4 to 5 years to balance these books. And why 4 to 5 years? Because it takes time to make changes without cutting the important social services. So we've guaranteed our transfers, our provincial transfers, for education and for healthcare, and at an increased rate of 3%. So he's guaranteeing it to the provinces, but we need to be more effective in how the government works, a smaller, more effective government, not sending $200 million to the Asian Development Bank for China to build infrastructure. China doesn't need our $200 million. Trudeau threw out almost $13 billion in promises using Canadian dollars in August alone. $13 billion, no plan of repayment. So these are things that we have to be smart about. We can't be giving corporations massive handouts so they can buy fridges. I'm meeting the small business owners in the area. They can use a tax break. They can use an incentive to help them improve buy more efficient fridges and stoves. That's going to help the small businesses. A corporation, a public corporation, does not need Canadian handouts. So these are things that are important, and in our infrastructure development with the communities and large projects like the REM, these are things that we've promised to continue investing in, and that's great because it drives the economy. But we have to be more effective in the way we transfer those funds, and there's huge losses of money by layers of administration that the Liberal government has instituted. So they like big government, we like small government. We want more effective government, and we want to leave more money in the pockets. So a family that's heating, that saves $600, and they have a student that they can get a tax credit for another $200-$300, and they have 3 bus passes in the home, and they get tax credits for that, another $500. You add every single element up, and we've promised to reduce the tax rates. That's actually going to help the middle class families. You put all that together, a family can save $2,000-3,000 a year, just like that. And that has a real effect, because they're going to take that money and they're going to spend it. They're going to save it, they're going to spend it, and that's how we drive our own economy. We weathered the bank meltdown, the global banking meltdown, because of solid policies.
Yeah.
And we had a solid government. This is what we need to come back to.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that you have a busy day. We're going to close it up. Tell me a little bit about the riding that you're running into. I mean, it's no surprise to anyone. I mean, there's no such thing as a safe riding. I mean, nobody ever takes anything, nobody ever takes anything for granted, but it's been considered kind of a safe riding for the Liberals for years. How do you make sure that your message goes out? What do you tell the people? Why are you the person that they should trust, that they should elect, and that you should be the person taking over the riding?
Listen, who I am says a lot about how I deal with things, and how I've dealt with things publicly through being on council also speaks volumes. I've always been involved in my community. I've always helped out. I went to work internationally. I worked in Haiti for 3 years for the UN. I've worked in Africa, always in capacity development, and that's what I'm doing with the First Nations. I'm working on capacity development. I had my own project to help communities get First Nation communities get access to clean water. So I don't just say. And I'm not just a talker. I actually execute and I actually get things done. So people see that. What am I doing? I'm going door to door. I'm meeting residents. I'm going to the malls. I'm meeting the people. I'm meeting them where they are, where they shop, where they live. And that's what I need to do. And I need to connect with these people. It's the riding, I'm telling you, is going blue. I am going to be hopefully one of a few ridings in Montreal to go conservative, and this will be a wake-up call for all parties. Every party needs to work all year, every year, not just election time, working for the residents and connecting with the residents. And that's something that I do as a councillor. It's something that I'm going to do as the MP for the Mount Royal riding.
Awesome. We're not going to take any more of your time. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. Good luck.
A pleasure. I had fun, and I got to see a lot of the construction that's going on.
Yeah.